Wish You Hell is the first official comeback for Red Velvet soloist Wendy, attempting to mold the singer in a new light through a different yet slightly more witty concept compared to her debut. As the title implies, unfortunately, Wendy indeed follows through on her promise to wish me hell. The rollout of her second mini-album couldn't have been a more painful experience to grit and bear through from beginning to the very end. Opposite to her debut, the bland logo reveal for this album signaled troubled waters ahead. I was never a huge fan of Wendy's original logo, quite the contrary actually, as I despised it very vocally. I understood the point of having these elongated strokes that were meant to resemble waves given the theme of the album. But between the awkward spiky ends and the rather faint stroke of the W to begin with, this logo in particular has always been an eyesore for me. I didn't imagine that somehow they could dig deeper to find something worse for her, but the sky is the limit for Center 3 and they are determined to crash and burn in the pits of an ocean. The team forgoes any sense of personality and style altogether to opt for a logo in Arial Black, a starter font that not your high school graphic design elective would give you a pity see for its usage. Thick and awkwardly kerned, Wish You Hell's logo feels bland and unimaginative, completely disengaged with the concept attached to the project, if not for the single blue ribbon that's tucked in between the letters. T's placement is meant to wink at the audience about the kitschy, scrapbook branding that the album adopts to showcase Wendy's insecurities in a natural way. In its attempt to be authentic, it clumsily falls apart on itself in a way that just feels uncomfortable to watch. Red Velvet has made a career out of logos that could be centerpieces to their projects, and yet oddly enough, their solo albums seem too shy to follow suit of its predecessors to the detriment of each's art direction. Wish You Hell is such a potent title, cheeky, bitchy and dripping with vengeance that calls back to a vintage sort of catiness. Why not reflect this fierceness in the typography? Even with the title card in Wish You Hell, the designers miss the mark completely with the tone of the project. This is not just a breakup album, nor is it just a horror concept. This is something drafted from the cloth of heathers and jawbreakers. Give us spunk. The rest of the song logos fall flatly on its face, much like the main one, seeming to opt for safe fonts that feel detached from the music rather than anything custom that could convey the emotions Wendy is crooning through the music. Of all the solo music we've gotten thus far, Wish You Hell seemed most primed for this treatment, as the album tracks are clearly piecing together a narrative. It's unfortunate such an opportunity was wasted. Spinning back on the album's logo, it's an even weirder choice on how far the other track logos veer off the theme picked for the album as well. This album wants a made-from-scratch, mixed media feel, and while I respect its hustle, the lack to follow through on this correctly with any of the typography makes everything feel so half-assed. Compare this to Birthday's booklet where each song had a different calligraphy style. Why wasn't this done for Wish You Hell? Even if you were afraid of double dipping, and let's be clear here, with SM clearly that concern has gone out the window, why wouldn't you make the song logos be in a stitched texture? Clearly you went with that approach with the CD having a stitched W on the button. You had the idea, why not put in that work and go the full mile? And that right there could sum up so much of my feelings towards Wish You Hell. The team has an idea but don't seem bothered to fully flesh it out, which is shocking. This is not a common occurrence with Red Velvet's work, especially in terms of their solo art direction thus far. The concept planning and design being done by Jong Gaon and Kang Joo-hun seems to have sealed this album's fate from the start. The mixed media style is found throughout the rollout but was first formally introduced through the scheduler. It's okay, it's actually the best out of Red Velvet's solo rollouts thus far, but nothing to write home about. It feels rather empty, the white space left behind having the contents feel as if they're floating in milk. The idea to make it a motion teaser was neat, but we needed to go the extra mile and complete the concept. Mixed media is such an interesting section of design because of how personalized and crafty it is. The team is too fearful of using textures. Some sketches, some grain effects, some distortion could have kicked this design to the next level and given the overall composition more personality, which the project is lacking severely. This is only further emphasized through the rather childish knock knock, who's the Ras teaser that kicked off the concept portion of the rollout. Still to this day, I don't comprehend what was trying to be conveyed with this. It's almost as if the team watched my creative direction video for Wendy, Thought it was a good idea and decided to slap this together last minute in hopes that I would wink and nod at them in response. It's pitiful, it's ugly, and it's rather pointless. Just another mistake to be tossed on the pile that this project tracks up the more you experience it. Then we have the concepts itself: school, sea of mind, and Wendy's P.O.V. Where do I even begin? I'll explain my interpretation of the team's thought process, then give my personal thoughts on the issues that riddle each afterwards, so we're on the same page here. School's concept is meant to reference the visual, in which Wish You Hell concludes in campy, 80s teen flicks such as Heathers and Jawbreakers, which pair high school melodrama with cold-blooded murder. This is the beginning of Wendy's journey, as she's shown here as a naive, sweet yet smart student. In my opinion, this is connected to the Wendy that died when her heart was broken. This wouldn't be an issue if not for the execution of the photos. Rather than leaning into the time period that the director clearly had in mind, School's concept photos is a try-hard, low-budget mess too modern for viewers to piece the connection together. Much like the title of the project, School's concept is supposed to be cheeky, showcasing Wendy as a marriage between the cool jock and preppy academia, cliches of its time. There's so many possibilities they could have gone with rather than the straightforward, bare-bones option they choose. The 1980s was huge for maximalists. Where is any of this in the set design or the styling? Why rely on cliches from this era but not correctly match elements of this concept to it? Where is the color blocking? The pattern mixing? I mean, even something as giving her a huge bow could have gotten the message of innocence through better than this. School's concept photos are a bore to the eyes. There's very few things in the set for Wendy to interact with and for the viewer to become immersed in the concept and the character she's trying to portray. Even her expressions read off as disinterested, further allowing the concept at hand to vanish in the details. She's supposed to be a marriage between cool jock and preppy academia, but the lack of anxiety or distress that's present in the concept video leaves this set without its selling point. Rather than seeing this concept set as the starting point to Wendy's characterization, most viewed it as someone who's pushing 80 in a schoolgirl outfit. Now, as an avid birthday defender and Red consumer, I'm not a fan of people putting age limits on concepts and think the idea of youth is not something that only those who are in their teens can explore. With that being said, Center 3's approach to this with Wish You Hell is so poorly done that I can't blame the average viewer from feeling quite annoyed in this portrayal. Something more fun, especially in the styling department, could have easily provided this concept the veil of irony that films like Grease are granted with adults in high school roles. But the centerpiece to Wendy's outfit is the tacky apparel from a literal sex offender who's desperately trying to stay on trend to maintain relevance. For me, it immediately made the entire concept feel outdated. We needed more deadstock thrifted clothes paired with Vivienne Westwood and less of this nonsense. The only good part of this set comes with the makeshift robot Wendy assembles, feeling like an alternate reality of Rev Robot's existence. It's a sick reminder of what this album could have been had these more out-of-the-box ideas been front and center, rather than the more safer, predictable concepts being the meat of the project. Next we have Sea of Mind, which much like its sister could have been so much more had the team not went with the ideas they wrote down for coffee one morning strung out on caffeine. I mean, even I had come up with a unique idea that could have suited this set well, shown in my Wendy video. Sea of Mind is supposed to lock us into Wendy's emotions. These emotions are all related to this current relationship. You can see how conflicted she is through these series of photos. Sea of Mind beckons back to Wendy's debut message, the calming, natural flow of water and how dependable it is to our lives, much like her love. Water plays a huge role in Wendy's characterization. Sea of Mind continues this. With the backyard beach approach shown, we're meant to take away that this relationship is Wendy's escape, it's her comfort, much like the beach is for many. The sea can be beautiful, but it could turn into your worst enemy in the blink of an eye. Rough waters and storms beware. Unlike the body of water that Wendy describes herself to be, ever calming and blanketing its surface in a warm embrace, the sea is the opposite. It's unpredictable, it's unforgiving. The relationship has ups and downs, reflected in the contrast of the more moody, mature shots crossed with the softer, more gentle ones in this set. In one picture, Wendy is seen palms out with a pink dove in her hand. Doves are mostly associated with peace but also are often tied into romantic symbolism as well. Pair this with its blush color, we could take this as Wendy wishing for peace amongst the rough seas she's found herself in. Also, given her position in the photo, it could also be interpreted as her attempting to save the relationship by any means. It's certainly not the worst in terms of symbolism, but it suffers from the unfortunate consequence of school's failure. Had the team gone more maximalist for the previous concept, it would have done Sea of Mind better in terms of placement on the rollout. But two concepts back to back with bare bones executions leave much to be desired with ideas so broad. There's more to sink your teeth into with Sea of Mind, but you can't help but wonder what we could have gotten if the project wasn't strapped to a minimalist approach with no personal flair. Moving on from there, we are granted to the last concept photos from this album labeled simply as Wendy's POV. Unlike Sea of Mind, this concept set returns us right back to the empty feeling that nestled its way into most of Wish You Hell so far. The concept is supposed to be showing us Wendy's perspective, yet nothing interesting comes out of it. Just these very Tumblr-centric shots that many felt leaned too closely to Taeyeon's artistic identity than it did Wendy's. There's a level of commitment shown with the accents of blue that peek its head out in the photos, especially in the bathroom where the mirror reveals 6 blue flowers in the reflection. But what exactly is this set supposed to be conveying to the viewer? Wendy looks happy in some shots, but for the most part, there's nothing to take away here. A concept that's supposed to directly plant us into Wendy's world has somehow missed the mark completely. It's honestly a perfect way to end this portion of the rollout, because that's how everything about Wish You Hell has felt pretty much. From there, the album takes a bizarre turn, introducing us to the tracks via sketches that feel tossed together. Intentionally, of course, as once again, the album is meant to have an intimate, scrapbook feel as it details the stages of Wendy's relationship. However, there's just something very underwhelming about these. The iPhone UI format has become oversaturated due to New Jeans popularizing the format, and Wendy's videos, like many others who have hopped on this trend, provides nothing different to the formula. It just feels lazy, especially after everything we had gotten. It's sweet to hear Wendy sing naturally, and a candid moment is something I'm not opposed to, but when the entire rollout feels messy and lacking a certain oomph, these sketches only make everything feel more bloated. It isn't even a creative way to tease the songs. Let me remind you once again, this is very clearly a narrative-based album. They had material to work with, why do something so low effort? Especially given that the era concludes with a completely different feel to everything we've discussed so far. There was absolutely no setup, and dare I say, they wasted time trying to convey a storyline that they could have done had they cared about the concept photos. Very confusing. I can say with confidence that all the motion teasers and track videos from this era were better scrapped than posted. Dissatisfied, disappointed but not yet deterred, I still ordered a physical copy to see if the package could offer more depth that the rollout was lacking severely. It was a swing and a miss in various areas. The packaged version feels like it should be much grander than what it actually is, which is a scrapbook version of Chill Kill's packaged version. Quite confusing, especially for those who don't have the album and were getting Blue Book vibes from the initial preview. Trust me, I wish the outer box was as creative as Blue Book or even as clean and cut to the chase like Chung's Cruncher, but it is unfortunately like neither. This outer box package works for Chill Kill given its concept. Here? Not at all. It also speaks to a lack of creativity, but that is to say that the uninspiring art direction was silent and thus, passable. Rest assured, it was loud and discussed. The size of the packaged version makes less sense with the design of the QR version, which actually comes in a well-decorated box with inclusions appropriately designed to match. The homey, personal feel that the packaged version desperately wants to emanate oozes more authentically here than it does in the former. This actually feels like a box that your grandmother had been holding for you when you reach a certain age, and inside it held an important memento to pass down. It's a shame that this design was wasted on what's essentially Cocomelon for photo card collectors. No, unfortunately, the packaged version is a mess through and through. It possessed elements from scrapbook and mixed media design, but all of it is generic and doesn't feel like it reflects any personal effects we can associate with Wendy. It's too polished for the rough around the edges aesthetic it wants to pursue, and thus we are left with this abomination of an album that's supposed to feel like a handmade crafted gift and instead feels like a corporate product. Keep in mind, Joy's hello pulls from the same thread to much better results with nostalgia bursting through the seams of each version of the album and its respective rollout. Even the themes of Wish You Hell are eerily similar to the aforementioned album but is lacking all the charm that Hello offered in tenfold. It's in examples like Joy's iconic Hello poster versus Wendy's concept card for this version. Both clearly are drawing from Y2K design and yet Joy's hits the nail on the head with its editing, while Wendy's feels too closely to a Canva template to bother caring. The photobook version is much more demanding in its presence, its size comparable to Esp's tabloid album From My World to display more photos from the initial rollout. It's admittedly well organized, an issue that I've found SM's designers to be on shaky grounds with certain projects. Though, it offers a huge middle finger to the concept organization from the rollout, as it begins with Sea of Mind and ends with School, rather than the other way around. On one hand, this decision to swap the two concepts could work given the timeline of events in Wish You Hell where in the end, Wendy's in a school gymnasium. On the other, it's a decision that feels decidedly random and breaks the level of continuity that was introduced to us. That continuity is useful when you're trying to build a narrative. A really good example of this was shown in my birthday breakdown. I explained that although the concepts chosen for birthday feel like they lack correlation, it's actually telling the story through its rollout. The girls begin in the kitchen to create their odd recipe and consume it, which allows them to gain their rev powers. From there, they use these powers to defeat the gingerbread man and celebrate the birthday party. It's a silly concept but even then, there's thought put into concept organization. So the way Wish You Hell abandons this at various points of the art direction is dizzying to follow. What is canon? What information are we supposed to take with us into the music video? Does any of this even matter? The setup for the finale was already barely cutting it and this decision in the photobook officially made the entire thing fly off the rails. Still, it's not all hopeless. This version comes with a lyric pamphlet that includes the third concept of the album. The front of the pamphlet is baby pink with a photo of Wendy's back with bedazzled gems to depict a butterfly. It was my favorite shot from Wish You Hell before anything released due to it being featured in the scheduler. It's simple and speaks to Wendy's newfound freedom from her relationship, breaking free and flying away. Transforming from the naive, sweet school student to a stronger, smarter Wendy who has found herself and bloomed from the showers. It's in horizontal form and actually utilizes a collage editing technique to achieve the scrapbook feel that Jung Gaon and Kang Joo-hun seem insistent on trying to channel through the era. Unfortunately, Birthday seems to have done this better in its respective photobook with more understanding of what makes the style work. It doesn't seem like an editing style either designer is familiar with and it shows with a lack of texturing and rather amateur execution, very reminiscent of gay pop companies trying their hardest to emulate the style. See, Somi's Dum Dum and Anytime ITZY has thrown their hat into the ring and miserably failed to achieve the effect. They want the look but rather than putting in that Talbot work for the real deal they'd rather do a digital, tacky commodified version of it. Yuck. Still, it's a cute way to display the lyrics that's engaging with the viewer. Beyond that we have details that help to strengthen the branding, which is much needed at this point. Photobook-wise, we have notable ones. Tape is maneuvered to create a W on the introduction page then a heart on the back side of the same page. Set pieces central to Sea of Mind's concept are allowed their own spotlight such as a clown with a vibrant red heart attached to it and the pink dove, now with a threshold effect popping against a pastel pink background. As I mentioned before, the seashell speaks to the storm on the horizon in terms of the relationship while the dove symbolizes the more peaceful occasions that both shared. This is further showcased by the clothing tag that was featured throughout the rollout with customized label design for Wish You Hell. The tag that comes with the album in physical form reads made with 54% love and 45% hate, further emphasizing the divide that's being communicated visually. Textures are featured on the pages, even if few and in between. Fur is featured throughout the photobook from the back flap to the back of the front cover and the back of the postcard inclusions. Page 58 features another scrapbook concoction to enhance the arts and craft feel of the album, but this, like other things in this rollout, is meaningless unfortunately. We have two heart cutouts for each concept. Sea of Minds receives the pink construction paper while School seems to be on a more felt texture, in blue and stitched around the cutout. Once again, this is displaying the narrative of the album, from Wendy being in love, to loving herself and her representative color blue being featured on the second heart signals that transition. As Wish You Health says and we see quoted on one of the pages, I can do anything I want, anything. I found myself, number 1. This quote is right above another photo of Wendy holding the seashells. The way she clutches them also gives this feeling of holding on to the relationship, even if it has become hell. I think it's interesting paired together with the imagery of the seashells. We find seashells and keep them to admire the beauty. Rather than finding seashells, Wendy has now found herself. Neat. It does make the BU sign above Wendy in the school concept work better. This with the robot bear she created shows Wendy accepting imperfection, which is opposite to the stressed academic and overachiever we saw in the concept clip. Also included in this concept is 2 photos of a dagger through an apple, which oddly enough only appears in the photo book. The apple imagery in particular was interesting to me for 2 reasons, both of which strengthen my analysis. Apples have long been associated with school, and you guessed it, school's concept is where this image is presented. The dagger through is once again, Wendy's rejection of her overachiever book nerd, goody two-shoes ways. Not only that, apples have also long been associated with temptation. This could also be interpreted as Wendy's rejecting the temptation to continue the relationship, adding to the overall narrative of putting herself first. Additional details include a slit to the front of the photo book with stitching underneath as well as the letter H weaved underneath. I'm not sure what its placement is meant to represent for the album, but it is neat that the photo book begins with H and technically ends with W through the CD design being a button with a thread that spells the letter. To me, that could mean starting with him, ending with Wendy. With these decisions, you can feel the vision of where Park Junjeong, Lee Jongjun, Jeong Gaon and Kang Joo-hun were trying to go with this. It's not the best execution, certainly, but there are areas that show a small semblance of competence to portray Wendy's complicated love story. With all this talk of a love story, finally let's get on to my thoughts on the music video. Campy, dripping with spunk yet sweet and delicate, Wish You Hell attempts to be modernized 80s eye candy to really decent results. I like the idea of Wendy showing up to her own funeral, seeing how foolish and delusional she was in her relationship and this symbolizing the death of her naivete and ignorance. My only request from this scene would have once again been pulling more from our influences. Stylistically, something more dramatic like Heather's funeral for Heather C would have worked well here. A clear distinction between both Wendy's while having a bit more flair to offer. The wiser Wendy is styled like any other idol in a girl crush concept. Nothing stands out. I will say though the casket having gold stars inside sparkling to go with Wendy's silver, more cold bejeweled eye makeup was a sick choice. The set pieces do wonders for the music video in general, as often the case with Red Velvet. The Batwing mirror genuinely being one of my favorites, unique and cheeky fitting right in with the tone of the overall concept. In the same suitcase could be found the Wheel of Fortune tarot card, which beckons on a change being introduced to one's life. Though it's not implied in any way, it did give me a chuckle recalling the old age joke about women killing their late husband in exchange for inheritance. Beyond that, we have the iconic ending in the gymnasium with the 4 shrewd and vintage soda bottles reading to heaven, one of which Wendy drinks. The irony being that despite Wendy committing the bigger sin of killing her ex, he's so awful that she'd probably be considered a saint in comparison. This rang the most true to me during the scene of her in this bright, beautiful white dress across from him in a stark bloody red leather wrap. Other small details I noticed was Wendy's suitcase having her name engraved in it, as well as the banner in the gymnasium actually having the Wish You Hell chorus lyrics on it. The ending scene also reminded me a lot of Lisa Frankenstein as well, the timing of the release coinciding well with the release of said movie. Overall, there was more effort put into this music video it felt than the rest of the production. We have more stylistic choices such as the soft vintage film glow that gives the cinematography this very fuzzy feeling. Or the set design going for interesting compositions that grab your attention even if they aren't necessarily transitional between one another. I think what it's missing, as I stated, is more interesting lighting choices and leaning more into the 80s influence. I would have loved to see the color grading take more inspiration from Technicolor, rather than be so faint at times such as the scenes with Wendy in the light blue dress. I don't think Wish You Hell is bad by soloist standards, given what most are to work with, but as stated, from the way it concludes, You are left to realize what exactly was robbed from both us and ultimately Wendy. Rather than doing this bizarre authentic angle for the track videos, it would have been better to begin setting up the characterization of Wendy for those. We needed a track video where Wendy showcases her tarot cards and her weird vintage knickknacks, where we see her personality shine through, and that sets up the music video. Another track video of Wendy complaining about her boyfriend, or even organizing how to kill him. Then the concept photos are even more far removed, borderline directionless, and don't seem bothered to even attempt to set up any visual storytelling for the music video either. I don't think things have to spelled out, of course, but I do think Red Velvet are the best at this. See comebacks such as Birthday, Chill Kill, or even Sogi's 28 Reasons. It's unfortunate how disjointed the actual album feels compared to the concept. So for that, I would have to give the art direction a 6. I understood what was being conveyed, but this album demanded more than what was given. The team seemed disinterested and fully going all out, and in the end settled for an above average production, unfortunately. That's all, Strawbesties. Let me know how you felt regarding the creative direction of this album. Do you also feel like some of the decisions made were really silly in hindsight? I'd love to hear your full thoughts. I'll see you babies in the next one.